Welcome everyone to the Cowgirl Channel Canada. We're excited to share with you some amazing stories that will inspire and motivate you from Canadian cowgirls all across our beautiful country, showcasing Canada's most experienced cowgirls to up-and-coming young women in the cowgirl industry. We will be featuring women in all aspects of the Western industry, from ranching to arts and entertainment, to women that can do all things cowgirl and with a cowgirl spirit. A place to share knowledge of some amazing women and to honor the way of the Canadian cowgirl. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Cowgirl Channel of Canada. We're so excited to share with you this very special interview with one very special Canadian cowgirl, Shannon Lawlor. Shannon is one of a kind and special in every way. Shannon grew up in the small town of 200 people in Kenton, Manitoba, where her parents always provided her love, nurturing, and plenty of horses for herself and her sisters to ride. Shannon credits the horses in her childhood for making her the woman she is today. Shannon was not only gifted as a young rider, at an early age during long winter nights, Shannon began to find her love for drawing horses as well. Shannon grew to love horses so much, she began her journey into her adult career working at the Burwash Equine Clinic as an equine veterinarian assistant for Dr. Wayne Burwash. During her time working at the Equine Veterinarian Clinic, Shannon became more confident to go after a career in her horsemanship. Shannon mentored and worked with a horseman, Peter Campbell, for several years. She discovered while mentoring that what she was learning completely changed her perspective on how to work with horses and how it impacted her life, and it still does to this day. Now, several years later, Shannon Lawlor is an accomplished, gifted, brilliant artist. Shannon's artwork embraces and embodies the Western way of living, from cow horses to traditional tack and a beautiful vaquero horsemanship style. Shannon's life mottos that she lives by: if it's important to you, you will find a way to do what you love and do it with everything you've got. Her advice to everyone is, stay true to your craft no matter what it is. If you don't have one, find one and own it. Stay true to it and don't be all over the map. Be great at one thing rather than lukewarm at many things, and stay disciplined. What a beautiful person and beautiful words to live by. This talented lady surprised me, and I'm sure she will surprise you. Please welcome our Canadian cowgirl, Shannon Lawlor. Welcome, Shannon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me, Lori. It's an honor to be here and to be embraced by your vision, and I'm happy to share whatever we can going forward here.
Oh, I'm so excited. It was great how we kind of connected, and I actually ended up talking to a couple of different ladies over the course of that are aware of what I'm doing with the Cowgirl Channel of Canada, and I mentioned your name, and they're like, oh, I know her artwork and so forth. So we're super excited to have you on the show, and you're just a gem. I've done some research and I've looked up some of your artwork, and now even to have the write-up and some of your history and the information of how you got where you are. I'm so excited for you to tell us a little bit more about your story. So let's start there. Let's start with your childhood and tell us a little bit about growing up with your family in Manitoba, and how many siblings did you have?
I have 3 older sisters, and they were very immersed in, it was the idyllic little girls are in love with horses, and there was a bit of an age gap between myself and my older sisters, so I had the natural tendency to look up to them and somewhat, mimic what they did, and the gravitation towards the love for the horses was a natural fit in that's what they embraced. So therefore, I actually look back and try to remember, and I don't remember my life without horses, so they were always there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's so cool. And so you grew up in a small town in a small area in Manitoba, and I've been to Manitoba myself a few times now, Winnipeg area and Steinbach and just outside there, and it's just it's so picturesque there. It's so beautiful. I love flying in during like daylight hours where you can kind of see a little bit. What's some of your favorite memories of growing up there?
Like you said, growing up in a very small town, 200 people, 4 kids in my grade, and when you grow up that way, it's normal to you, right? So, I really did. Even though we grew up in town, my mom, bless her heart, she always had a barn on the outskirts of town and a few acres rented, and we always had the horses. So I put a lot of miles on my bicycle and going from one end of town to the other, because the horses weren't in close proximity. Even though this town was small, I had to pedal my bike, or when I was learning how to drive, you just and could see over the dash and were trusted. You could just take the truck and go to chores at school, and I really had an idyllic childhood in that regard. And the horses, like I say, they were always a part of that. And so I think I probably started showing horses when I was 7 years old. And to answer your question, those were some of my they still are some of my most cherished memories of growing up, were just going to the local fairs and learning how to be responsible in that way, and for your tack and for your pony, and to show up on time and get your entries in, and if you won a ribbon, you sent a thank you card or what have you. So it was just a really organic way to experience horses and growing up, and in a safe community that everybody was kind of like-minded,
just to go back to what you said when I started, and you're right, of 5 kids in the classroom, you can never get in trouble. You can never, you are seen by your teacher if there's just 5 of you, right?
and absolutely, and quite often if something did go sideways, my mom would know about it before I got home. So there was that. I mean, there's huge benefits and perks to living and growing up in a small community. But the downside is if somebody had a cigarette, somebody knew about it before they got home.
But it's so funny too. Like, I mean, that idea of growing up on a farm, like I had that too. And you're just saying, like, when you're old enough and you can see it over the dash. I remember my dad teaching me how to drive in the wintertime, like on the farm road, because you have to learn, right? So it's crash course, and back in the day, 40 years ago, we had like piles of mountains of snow, and so you get big drifts across the farm road, and it's just such a great way to learn how to be confident, right?
Absolutely. Like when you can reach the pedals, they give you the wheel kind of thing. Yeah, it's no big deal, right? Just get in, drive, you're okay. We'll get you on the other side. I mean, there weren't any helmets and things like that. It was a little bit more rogue back then. But look, we're still here to talk about it. Right?
Absolutely.
So it was wonderful.
So when you think back on that, is there any special stories or any special horse stories that happen that really stick out in your mind, that are something that's a favorite memory to share, like even with your sisters and stuff when you guys get together?
Well, there's many of them. There's many of them. And for me, there probably isn't one that sticks out more than the other, but going to the local fairs with my little Welsh pony, and having pigtails and woolly 4-trail pants in the summer, and it was hot. Learning, like I said, how to be, making sure your pony had enough water and everybody had lots of straw, and when you're bedding horses and doing things like that, and taking care of your tack and making sure the doors are locked, or just all of that.
Oh, yeah, and it's still the same when you turn into an adult. You still, it becomes natural. Like it's just the same as putting your pants on one leg at a time. You just learn how to do it.
And it was there, and I thought it was something fun to do. But you look back and you now I understand that was truly educational and learning. You were learning how to be responsible. and how to compete and going in the ring, and it didn't matter if you placed or not.
Yeah.
How to be learning how to be competitive and be confident, and you do build confidence as you go.
Absolutely.
Doing that, and yeah, it's I don't have a negative thing to say about it, to be honest.
Well, it's wonderful that you had that opportunity. A lot of people that don't and get into horses later in life, you know, they have that same feeling, and it's so awesome. I get to see it a lot of times when I do clinics and I teach some of my horsemanship. Some of the people that I get have just gotten their horses at their end of, you know, they're at a point in their life where they can enjoy having a horse in their life full time, and they still are so childlike though. It's so cool to watch them like get excited about getting a new trailer.
Right.
It's awesome.
I know, yeah. So, but it doesn't matter what age. I think the effects are the same.
Absolutely. I think it's what keeps us a little bit young at heart, for sure, is the horses. But when you were younger, you had I guess the bug, or you had the desire, the passion to draw horses at a very early age as well. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that start for you?
Okay, well, it anchors back into the same story. So if you've been, anyone that's been to Manitoba or knows anything about the weather patterns north of the 49th parallel, there's 100,000 lakes in Manitoba, and which brings into summer immense humidity, and then in the winter, the humidity is still in the air, but it can be 40, 50 degrees below Celsius. So you don't ride horses 12 months of the year there, and nobody was privileged enough in my area to have an indoor heated riding arena. So, you know, when we what we would do was bring our tack home in the fall before it got cold, and then you'd spend some time cleaning and looking after things and doing repairs if that was the case in the winter months. And the other thing that two of my sisters were artistic, and again, I was this little person, you know, following them around doing whatever they did, and they drew. So I don't remember not doing that. So the horses and the drawing go hand in hand. They've always been there. They've been a part of my life since before I can remember, to be honest. Like, I have a couple of finger paintings, and I have several actually, and one I pulled out and framed because it's just blue paint, you know how you do in kindergarten, and it's a finger painting of a outline of a sun that's oversized and an outline of a horse. Wow. So I don't remember doing that, but
you did.
You know, it's mine. Yes, for sure. And so in the winter months, you know, there's a lot of darkness in Manitoba. It gets dark at 4 o'clock and not light till 8 o'clock the next day. That's what I did in the winter. If I wasn't riding horses or ponies, I was drawing them.
Wow.
That was my childhood.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom, actually, I'm so excited to let her hear this interview, and to see some of your artwork and stuff. She's always drawn, you know, birds or flowers and stuff like that. And it's the funniest thing. Just like, I had something happen to me recently, and I was somewhere and I was watching someone, and I was watching their hands, and it struck a memory so deep in me, so far back in my childhood. I could remember watching my mother's hands when she would read to us, and she would follow along. And I still have my mother. She's with us all the time, and she's fantastic. But just the memory of her, and when we were children, reading to us, and we'd follow along her finger and how she would draw. It's one of those things that you just, it's a flashback picture memory that I have of her hands, always so gentle, so kind, and she loves to draw. So I'm excited for her to hear this interview. Hi Mom.
That's fun. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So as you got a little bit older and you moved forward into your adulthood, and you always had the horses, I mean, just wonderful story about how you did kind of a little bit of this and this and this and everything. One of the things that caught my eye right away was the Burwash Equine Facility. Now, I'm just curious because I'm not familiar, but is that the Burwash Equine Facility just outside of Cochrane?
Well, I was at the original Burwash Equine Services, which was the one before that.
Okay, yes.
So, yeah, I which used to be in Springbank, west of Calgary, not in Cochrane.
Okay, right, yeah, because actually when I did the Calgary Stampede, I traveled back through the U.S. and I traveled out through the U.S., so I had to have my paperwork done for my horse that I had at the Stampede. And I ended up actually with the Burwash Equine doctors kind of doing my vet passport and all that fun stuff, and I got to go to the new facility. And when it came across in your write-up, I was like, wow, that's so, like, I mean, that's fantastic. So, so when did you actually move out from Manitoba out to Alberta?
I think in 1988.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, yes, from Manitoba.
Yeah. And so did you go back very often? Is your family still back home in Manitoba?
Yeah, I have relatives in Cochrane, and most of them are still in Manitoba. Yeah, and so I think I worked at Burwash's. I moved out here in '88. I think I was at Burwash's in. Oh my gosh, I don't remember the exact dates. Yeah. 92 to 94, maybe.
Yeah.
1992 to 1994, and that was at Wayne Burwash's vet clinic in Springbank. And then he sold his practice a number of years ago, and that's the new facility that you would have been at.
Okay.
Right?
Well, wow, that must have been such an experience working at their equine facility, and just, I mean, the hands-on experience, and to get to see, you know, I would imagine you got to see or were a part of, you know, on the sidelines of some pretty serious emergencies with equines, and it's got to be such an interesting line of work. I know a young girl out west, and that's what she's aiming to do is vet care. So yeah. So any fun or interesting things that happened along the way working there?
Oh my gosh, and so I had. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you know, I've done a lot of different things. I've had a lot of different jobs, but most of them in my life have revolved around horses in the ag industry, right?
Yes.
So when I went to Burwash's, that was a tremendous opportunity, and it was back in the day where I was virtually a vet assistant, but you didn't have to be certified.
Right.
And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus here, but it wasn't a requirement.
No.
It was that long ago. It wasn't a requirement. So it was a multi-purpose role that I had. You know, they had their own horses, and then they had a facility where horses could come for rehab, or if they had surgery, they could recover there. Right. And then in the spring, we had 2 stallions that came in, and, you know, Dr. Burwash provided the breeding facility and a foaling facility. So we were foaling out, not a lot, but there were a number of mares that would come in. You know, people didn't have facilities or didn't feel confident foaling out their mares. We would be able to accommodate them for that. So the foaling service was provided, and breeding service. And we had a cutting horse stallion and a pleasure horse stallion there, and
nice.
Had 30 or 40 mares in the spring, and it was a big job, as well as the veterinary practice, which I went on calls with Dr. Burwash a few times, but 99% of the time I was stationed at the facility to, you know, receive clients and in the back, and I took care of all the horses that needed looked after pre and post surgery. Wow. And I gained a lot of knowledge and took in a lot of information, it was fabulous. And Dr. Burwash was a tremendous individual. And to this day, you know, I've been self-employed for 16 years, but before that, I've always said he was the best boss I ever had, and I learned the most. I learned about ethics and being kind and how to treat people and being professional. Wayne was, he's still a dear friend, right? Like I hold Dr. Burwash and that whole experience in very high regard.
Wow, but that's wonderful. You know, it's such a nice feeling when we're fortunate enough in our lives, not just as women in different facets and different parts of the industry or in the world, but it's such a nice feeling to have that other person that you can look up to and that you have that regard for, because it changes a course of so many different things, and it develops us as a person, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it's no different than being 7 and learning those things about going to the horse show and how to be responsible, but this was on a whole other level. Like, I mean, administering drugs and taking care of horses that were delicate after a surgery or foaling or whatever. It was, and having decorum while you do it. Like, that's, I learned so much from that experience.
Oh yeah, it had to have been just amazing. And I mean, just a little bit more too, when I went through some of the stuff with your write-up, you did mention too as well that as you went through your horsemanship and learning, and this was kind of either in between or after Burwash, you mentioned that there was one great horseman that you had learned some things for that kind of did change how you felt about horsemanship ultimately at the end of the day, and I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Well, it's a good point, or timely that you brought that up now, Lori, because I guess I'm a chronological thinker in that I have to kind of piece together my experiences chronologically. So can I just give you this little story because it segues into what you just asked?
Absolutely.
A couple of 3 years into working for Dr. Burwash, I've always been infinitely curious about why everything. Why do people do what they do? Why do horses do what they do?
Yeah.
I was catching horses for breeding there, and you know, some horses would come and they didn't want to be caught. They lived in a different lifestyle, so you just had to do whatever you do to get them caught. And you had to be timely about it because you're on a schedule and somebody's on the other end waiting for you. So I became more curious about how horses operated and how what inspired them to do what they did. You know, how horses think I guess it was just always a curiosity for me. So when I was working for Dr. Burwash, a clinician came to Cochrane, and I had followed that natural horsemanship. And I know it's a funny word for the public, and people roll their eyes sometimes when they hear that. And I really don't care, but I don't know what else to call it. But my pursuit wasn't the quote natural horsemanship. My pursuit was I desperately wanted to understand how horses thought and how to be better around them.
Beautiful. So
I found someone that had a colt that they wanted started, and I said, I'll start your colt in the clinic. So I had no money then. I said, if you pay for the clinic, I'll ride your colt.
Wow. And
away we went, and we agreed to do that. So I went and took a clinic from Peter Campbell.
Okay.
At Cochrane. And I already read Tom Dorrance's book and Ray Hunt's book and all that good stuff. So it was a game changer for me, I guess, to put it shortly.
Yeah.
So the next year, Peter came back and did a big clinic at Sundre, and I was in the clinic with 2 horses, I think, and he was coming back to ride horses for the summer, and I asked him, can I come and do this with you? I need to know. I couldn't see anything else other than I needed to understand this. I needed to know this more than more than anything, it really became paramount in my life.
Right.
So he said, yes, be back here in 2 months.
Wow.
So I go back to work at the vet clinic, and I remember, and I'm sure Wayne can remember if he hears this interview or if it's aired. I called him out into the clinic area outside the office to give my notice because I was going to go pursue my horsemanship.
Yeah.
And he had a smile on his face, and it made it even more difficult for me to give him this notice because I held the man in such high regard, and I had great respect for Wayne. And it wasn't anything about that. It was that I just felt like I needed to go over here and learn something else. And when I said I was giving my notice, his face dropped, and he said, "Oh God, I thought you were going to ask me for a raise, and I was going to be prepared to give you one." I was like, no. Oh my God. It was like my toes curled telling the story because I hurt his feelings and
oh my goodness,
all that good stuff. And he said, "You can't leave." And I said, what do you mean? He said, "I've never had anyone work here the way you do. You're more efficient and you're better at this than anybody I've ever had here. You can't leave."
Wow.
And I wasn't very old then, and I'm like, well, what does that mean? You know, and anyway, we worked it out in our conversation.
Yeah.
And that's, I left Burwash's to go pursue.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What an awesome transition, though, for you.
Well, and I mean, like I said, I had no money at the time, and I was young, and I was kind of living by the seat of my pants, if you will. But that experience going and riding 20 colts a day for under that tutelage of Peter Campbell was a game changer for me. Yeah. Yeah. And again, Peter wasn't very well known then. He was just starting to embark on his career as a horseman and doing. He wasn't even doing clinics internationally. So, I did. I just, like I said, that was a game changer for me. Yeah. In every aspect of life, because what I learned, it isn't just about horses. It's an awareness level that translates over to everything.
Absolutely.
Every life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love when I read that in your write-up, and I was so curious how it was that, because as you wrote it, and then I saw a little bit more, and the whole idea of the vaquero horsemanship and how it does change a lot of different things for you, because you find something that you're really comfortable with and that you really actually love, because there's so many things we can do in the equine industry. And I had a similar story. I was kind of on my own path and following different things and doing whatever, and I had that same kind of aha moment. Probably about, I can't remember how long ago. It's been a while back, but it was with Buck Brannaman in the U.S. I did a clinic with Buck, and I did colt starting with my youngsters. So it was one of those things.
You know exactly what I'm talking
Absolutely. About. It was one of those feelings when, as I was doing the event, and while I was there, like I took everything so, like everything became so silent in my head.
Yeah.
And it sets you somewhere else, because you're like, all of a sudden, this is exactly what you've been looking for all this time, and it makes you feel like I went after what it was that I needed to, and I didn't stop looking until I found it. And that's actually my motto about my horsemanship. And one of the things I wrote for the Art of the Horseman when I did a clinic with them a couple years back was, I was always trying to find a better way. And when I found that feeling in that clinic with Buck Brannaman, it set me onto, I'm definitely on the right path for my horsemanship and my philosophies. So I know exactly how, and that's why I was so curious to ask you, because you hadn't actually said who the horseman was, and I was, the vaquero style, and I was like, oh, maybe it's Buck Brannaman.
Well, and Buck and Peter were contemporaries, right?
Absolutely.
They were very dear friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful, and I love that. I love the whole idea of that. You were doing all of what you were doing, like handling horses on a daily basis, from everything to brood mares and horses that were coming in that had rehab, and here you were seeing this other horse trainer and looking at it and saying, okay, I need to know more about this, right? Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling for sure.
Totally. It really is. And it was just an infinite curiosity that I always had. And I said, well, I guess I can say up until this pandemic, it was the hardest thing I ever did, and it was the best thing I ever did, working for Peter.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, the last 17 months or 18 or whatever it is, I said, this is a close second, but I think, you know what? This is harder. So that's taken a second place seat now. I never thought that would happen, but here we are.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think hopefully we're kind of coming towards the end of it, but
oh yes,
things are changing. And as things changed for you, how did it evolve that you kind of not made a mindset or made a decision, a life change, but how did you actually actively become more or less a full-time painter?
Well, again, you're asking all the right questions in the right order, because my departure from Burwashes to riding rope colts for Peter Campbell, which wasn't easy, because working at home was a different situation than the clinic situation, right? Well, where things are a little fluffed and tidied and whatnot. It was. I drank out of a fire hose basically every day, learning and trying to keep up and not get hurt and do the right thing, but do it 20 times kind of thing. It was, so that took place, and then, life carried on, and I went and rode a bunch of horses for myself and for some other people, and I'm going to say you fast forward that another 10 years, and then I was in a situation where I was working for someone, and I don't know how to say it. It's like they figured out what I knew, so I virtually lived in the rock again.
Wow.
Because I mean, like, learning that and understanding, starting colts and halter breaking colts or horses it became my thing, and I loved it. So I loved seeing those young horses understand and learn something with great ease, and giving them patience and time to figure it out. And it was just my biggest joy, but I was doing it for my work, Lori. So I got burnt out. Is the bottom line.
I hear you, girl. I hear you.
I was physically exhausted, and I was mentally exhausted because I had worked so hard at the horsemanship. I just kept doing it, right? And I didn't make some wise personal choices along the way, if you will. So things overlap, and there you are. And all of a sudden I was looking, going, I can't keep doing this.
Okay. Yep.
I'm exhausted. I was going to the chiropractor twice a week.
Wow.
I didn't hurt doing what I was doing, but it's hard on your body. You're hauling horses around, and it's physically demanding. And I'm 5'3", and things are harder for me than for a 6-foot strapping man kind of thing. So, I just burnt my little self out doing what I loved. Yeah. And I just quit, and I was starting to, I don't want to say resent the horses, but I was getting to the place where I didn't want to be around them because I was having them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah,
I get it. I totally 100% get it.
I felt that, and it scared me because I'd never felt that, and I didn't want to feel that way about them or towards them.
No.
And it wasn't their fault.
No.
And I'm being terribly honest.
Yeah, and that's life. Sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how it unfolded. So one thing always segued into the other in the chronological flow of my life, kind of thing. And I hung up my reins, I think, in the end of 2004, and started painting in 2005.
Wow. That's fantastic.
I did. I literally went, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something else. Well, I can paint a little bit. And in and amongst all of what I've just told you, I did find an art teacher in Calgary. So I had taken art lessons, and I was still taking lessons from my art teacher in Calgary. But I never really did anything about it. It was just something I did on the side. And I was learning a little bit about composition and mixing paint and color and how to actually draw properly and things like that. So that was going on, you know, while I was at Burwash's and after, and riding horses here and there and everywhere. But it was the only other thing I could resort back to, because I literally went, I can't do this anymore. I can paint a little bit. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, and
that was my business plan in 2005.
But you know, and you said, you know, you start and you could draw and you could paint, and then it was, and I just kind of wanted to say that's very modest, because I just looking at your website and looking at your artwork, it's just. And I've been looking at it for the last year or so since I kind of found you on Facebook, and it is such, it's I can feel everything that you're doing. Like it's such a, you know, and just to go back to the vaquero horsemanship lifestyle, and you know, that thing that happened for me when I first met Buck Brannaman. You know, he talked about how it is an art form. It's a dance, what we're doing with our horses, and it literally is what it transformed you into what you're doing, because you have all that horsemanship behind you. You have all that, the calluses and the bruises and all of everything that happened to you. You have all that, and you're taking it and putting it through your fingers onto paper, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. So you're very modest when you describe your talents.
Well, it's just been my life. Like, it's not like I don't have a degree. I barely graduated grade 12 because I just, you know, that's what it was. I got out of high school and I didn't understand my friends that were going to college. I'm like, how do you know what you want to do? That perplexed me. Yeah. I just lived by my instinct, you know. I let my heart guide me. Yeah. And maybe that was right, maybe that was wrong, but it unfolded into, you know, how you asked me these questions of this is one thing always kind of led to another. And then when I was physically and mentally exhausted and didn't want to ride. I mean, I could have kept riding. Yeah. But I just knew, my instinct told me, if I'm feeling this way now, I do not want to feel this way in 5 years or 10 years. And if my body hurts now, I knew I had to stop. Yeah. And I took the horses and my love for them and put it into my artwork. Yeah. So, you know, and what I learned from Peter was I became educated about the vaquero lifestyle and the history and the heritage and the importance of the gear and what it all meant. Yeah. And it intrigued me, and I was infinitely curious about that. So it was a natural segue into my artwork. That's kind of what I started to embrace, and maybe some of the things that you see there now. So yeah, and that's a part of it too, like looking into some of your artwork and with the tack and stuff like that, you're seeing it through your eyes, really, and to know that you had spent the time working and studying that form of horsemanship, that art of it, then that's what people are seeing. They're seeing your experience, right? And it's a different feeling altogether, because you know, I talk about this all the time. I had a wonderful lady on here from the East Coast, and she's a musician. She's a Canadian female artist, and it's fantastic to talk with her, but like genuinely, you know, was very honest with her and told her, you know, she has a very distinct voice, and it's such a nice feeling to know, it's an honor to know you women, just to get this hour or two to speak with you,
to know
Wow.
your story, to know why you do what you do, to how you got to where you are and where you're going to go. It's such an amazing feeling because, I mean, you know, sky's the limit, right? When we're doing what we're doing, and like you just said too, you didn't have any rhythm or reason to go to college or to do anything like that. You just followed what your heart led you to, right?
I did. I didn't have any formal upbringing. You're right. Like, and I did. I just listened to my gut, and that's why it's unfolded as it has.
Yeah. It's a beautiful journey, right? And I mean, you don't even know what the next thing is that's going to happen. And I mean, here we are, we're talking, and I know when COVID happened for me, you know, I was kind of had a giggle or two thinking, well, I'm okay because I'm happy to be home, be with my own horses for a change, because I'm on the road every, you know, few days. And it had me thinking about a bunch of different things. And then I started looking on the internet and trying to source information about Canadian women that were cowgirls. Looking at, you know, old black and white films and watching and trying to research where, you know, the first Canadian woman was at the Calgary Stampede, and all these things. And I kept reaching through all these different avenues.
Good for you.
But I couldn't find one solid spot where I was like something current about Canadian women today. And so then I took it upon myself to create this channel, and
so this is the result of the last 18 months is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, this is lovely.
Yeah, so it's just, and you know, I kind of, I guess, a lot of people, and a lot of people that you meet and go through in life, we all go through all these different changes, and we struggle, and then we adjust and we fix and we move on. But I've talked to a lot of different people, and it was a very hard time for everyone across the world, you know, with COVID and the pandemic. And if you can find something in any part of your life when you're going through it, and this is one of the things I teach in my horsemanship, you can find one thing that's positive, hang on to that and work towards that, right? So that leads me to talk to you a little bit about your motto in life. I would love for you to share with us a little bit about what you feel is your motto in life, and what advice you would leave and give to other people, especially you know, young women or men that are listening that want to go into veterinarian care or work at an equine facility like what you were at, because not every equine facility or vet care services has the breeding as well. So there's all different types of things. So you have all these different avenues of experiences that you led you to where you are today as a successful artist and, you know, an accomplished horsewoman. So what's your life motto, and what's some of the advice that you would give to young women that are listening to our show?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question, and a loaded one, because I've had a diverse experience. But if I had to, I think I said it a minute ago, Lori, I think it's important to listen to your gut instinct. And I know, just listen to your instinct, and if it's important to you, you need to find a way to make it happen. And it's a cliche, there's sayings out there, if it's important, you'll find a way, and if it's not, you'll find an excuse. And the thing is, you know, I just gave you the cookie cutter version of my life in 20 minutes kind of thing, but life happens in the meantime, right? While you're pursuing your goals or your dreams, things happen. You might break your leg, someone might pass away, you know, but it does. Life happens while you're pursuing your goals, and you know, you can't put a timeline on it. It might take 5 years, it might take 5 months. It depends what happens, and it depends on the situation. Like I had goals and things I was going to do, and then the border closed 18 months ago. So I've had to readjust, you know what I mean? Life happens, but I think it's important to know who you are and honor what your passion is. And if you don't have one, find out.
Yeah.
I sadly had to have a conversation with someone a couple of years ago, and they called and said, how do you know that that's what you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. That's like, I've always known.
Yeah.
The horses have shaped my entire life.
Yeah.
And whether you know, I was able to get a paycheck every 2 weeks from working with them or around them, or in painting them and drawing them for the last 16 years, they've shaped my entire existence. I don't know who I would be without them, but that was the life I was born into, and thankfully I became obsessed with it, and it shaped my life into what it is now.
Yeah.
But if somebody doesn't, if you're out there and you don't really know what it is that makes you get out of bed in the morning, you better go find something, because I think it's important to have a reason to get out of bed and to work towards something that matters and to contribute to society. I think it's important.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful, so true, and so real. And I mean, it's true. I mean, you should be able to feel that way about your life. And if you don't know what you're passionate about, you don't know what it is that drives you and guides you, you'll figure it out, but you got to keep trying, right? And that's the thing too. It's so important. And COVID really did, it slowed everybody down. It stopped everybody. Everybody kind of went into, you know, Simon says freeze, and everybody had to just stay still and wait for this pandemic to finish so that we could get back to our normal lives. But there's been many blessings that have come out of it, and there's been lots of struggles for a lot of people. But I'm grateful I'm grateful for Canadian women, and I'm grateful for the Cowgirls. And I'm grateful for you for being on our show. I really appreciate your time today, and I loved all the artwork, and we're going to share that on our website.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm already trying to figure out, and I think I did mention to you, your artwork. It's the Three Wise Men. Is that right?
Three Wise Men. Yeah.
Three Wise Men. It's just something about that captures me. I think it's the middle horse, and he's looking off.
Oh, the buckskin,
and it just every time I see it, I just go, and I just like, I think that's definitely one that's kind of one that's kind of touching my heart for sure, for a reason. Yeah.
Well, and probably because we have the common denominator of the horsemanship. Yeah. You know, between us, in that. Those are the three organic stages of making a bridle horse. So if you've visited with Buck and had that experience, that reverts back to my experience. So we have share, right, which is lovely. Yeah.
Well, Shannon, it has been an honor to talk with you. I cannot wait to get out west, and I can't wait to be actually in person with you, and hopefully that will be someday soon. We can be at some event.
I'd love that. Yeah. I would absolutely love that. And I do want to say one parting thought in regards to, what is this now, August 2021?
Yes.
We need to visit again in about 6 months, you and I, because if you come out here before then, there's I have a new body of work that has not been shared yet.
Okay.
And it's a result of the pandemic. It's a result of lockdown and what creating a silver lining in a situation that was the biggest negative any of us have probably ever experienced.
I just got goosebumps. I'm excited.
So it's not out in the world yet, but it will be soon. So I don't know, we can maybe visit about that another time.
Absolutely. Well, I do have some itinerary plans to be out west in Cochrane area in October, and then we could maybe meet up. But I would love to meet you in person and sit down and do a live interview, not a live, a recorded interview, but in person, like face to face, sitting down and having a chat. Originally, when I started out doing that was my idea, and then the pandemic kind of just wouldn't go away. So I couldn't interview anybody in person, but I'm really looking forward to doing those sit down and have a chat, and really, get to meet the person and get to know a little bit more about your life. But like you said, this has been a small window into a little bit, and thank you so much for sharing your life with all of us, and hopefully at some point it'll help somebody else out. And I'd love for you to be able to share with us how people can get in touch with you and see some of your artwork.
Of course, Lori, and thank you. I appreciate you reaching out and having me on your Cowgirl channel. It means a lot to me, and I think if it can do anything, like you said a minute ago, is, I'm just not talking about myself. If there's, hopefully it does inspire someone, Yes. I've been inspired along the way by many different people in small ways and big ways, and you don't know what a conversation can, have an effect on someone that is looking or pursuing a career in whatever it is. But I think to be inspired and stay open to being inspired is the way to find happiness and what it is that you're looking for. So thank you very much for having me on your show.
No, it was great.
Of course, there's to follow up in the end. My website is shannonlawlor.com. Okay. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that good stuff. Okay. Twitter, LinkedIn.
Yay.
You can email me off my website, subscribe to my mailing list, or maybe find me on the Cowgirl channel.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'll have all your links up there, and maybe we'll share some of the artwork as well. But just to go back to what you just said, my mom used to always say to me, you never know what someone's going through. You don't know what's going on in their lives, so you should always just take that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds and just wait, because you never know. And you know what? It's been so great to talk to you. I can't wait. I can't wait to meet in person, and we will revisit in 6 months, maybe even sooner than 6 months.
Sure, that would be absolutely. I'd love that, Lori, and thank you again. I've really enjoyed visiting with you and being a part of your show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Thanks, Lori. Okay, bye-bye.